By the Odyssey app.
KFXX KWJJ HD2 Portland. An Odyssey sports station. Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks looking to remain number one and undefeated this week, hosting Maryland. First time they've ever faced the Terrapins on a football field. Kickoff 4 o'clock right here on The Fan. Our live pregame coverage from Eugene will start at noon. Ducks a 24.5-point favorite. Meanwhile, Oregon State trying to end a 3-game losing streak. They're coming off a bye, getting some key players back from injury, hosting the San Jose State Spartans 12:30 at Reser. You can see this one on the CW Network. OSU a 3-point favorite. Thursday night football delivering 5 combined touchdowns between the Bengals and the Ravens in the fourth quarter. Cincinnati got the last one but failed on a 2-point conversion, and Baltimore escapes with a 35-34 win. College hoops tonight here on The Fan. Ducks hosting Montana at 7 o'clock. Pregame coverage begins at 6:30 following primetime. Oregon 15.5-point favorites. Just up the road in Corvallis, the Beavers will welcome in Weber State for a 7 o'clock tip on ESPN+. Oregon State a 6-point favorite. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from The Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand at the Odyssey app, The Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Hot Corner, now in its new time. Tuesdays at 7 after Isaac and Soup on Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan. Dirt and Sprague on Football Friday on 1080 The Fan.
The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app, follow 1080 The Fan, and enable push notifications to get the latest on the Ducks, Beavers, Blazers, and more.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, let's do this. Hour number 2. Happy Friday morning. Welcome in, Dirt and Sprague. No Sprague today. He's out for his anniversary. I am Dirt.
I don't do a ton of research.
We got a lot to get to in the second hour of the show. It sounds like we're going to go to LSU. Is that confirmed? Do we have a thumbs up on that? Maybe. Yeah, tilted ahead. Potentially go to LSU coming up. We have Muscle Menos, maybe, coming up at 7:30. Maybe go to LSU. They got a big one this weekend. The old Crimson Tide are coming to town. LSU and Alabama play. And so we'll see if we can go down there. Where is our... I lost our SEC... Oh, here we go.
We can't trust your ass now.
They're going down to Baton Rouge this weekend. Can't wait to watch that one. Should be fun. Should be a fun weekend of college football. We got a lot to get to here in the second hour. Most of it will be college football, and that's where we will start. The Oregon Ducks are taking on Maryland this weekend. The Fighting Maryland Terrapins. The Fighting Juan Dixons and Steve Blakes are in town.
That's right.
Oregon and Maryland have never played in football before.
Pretty
Ever.
Remarkable.
After all the years, never once in a random game.
some random bowl game back somewhere they would have. No.
I mean, Oregon used to go to a lot of bowl games, so that was the one part.
Yeah.
In more recent memory.
But you thought, like, in the 80s and 90s when they were getting to some bowl games, but not the premier ones, you could have. That's where a Sun Bowl, you could have caught Maryland.
Random game. Never won. So this would be the first time ever. I understand that a lot of people outside looking in who are not Duck fans just kind of roll their eye at this game because, it's Maryland, and Maryland's not great. It's a 25-point spread. I will say, I kind of view games like this that aren't my team as well, like Georgia playing, I don't know, Mississippi State. You're like, all right, I'm not going to watch that game, but I'm going to scroll on ESPN and see what's the score at halftime.
Keeping an eye on this.
Is it 24-21 in the third quarter? I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Now I'm changing the channel to it, or is it 28-0 in the second quarter? And you're like, all right, that's why I wasn't watching Georgia play Mississippi State. Probably what the game is going to be for a lot of fans who aren't Oregon fans this weekend. It's 4 o'clock right here on the Fan and on the Big Ten Network. And on that note of, will this be a letdown spot? Will this be potential for, are you going to overlook an opponent? You're coming off a big win against Michigan, going on the road to Wisconsin next weekend. This is sandwiched in between them. Isaac and Suk talked to Dan Lanning as they do every Thursday at 4 o'clock. It was a really fun interview yesterday. Suggest you go listen to the entire thing. They asked him about, you're the number one team in the country. Maryland, the Terrapins are coming to town, and this is not college basketball. How do you keep your focus?
It's not that hard when you have a group of guys motivated, like our group is, and hungry. I think we have a group that's that really pays attention to the things that matter and realizes the things that don't, and are motivated to be great. So I don't think it's that tough for us. We got a great group of coaches and a great group of players right now.
What's helping them in that cause, I think, is that a lot of their key guys are players who are veterans, who have been around a long time, who have seen a lot of football. Like Gabriel's going to break Bo Nix's starting quarterback record, which is remarkable after what we went through with Bo last year. You got guys on the offensive line who have played meaningful snaps. Your wide receivers have been in big games. Look at all your transfer guys you brought in the secondary. Hell, Jabbar Muhammad played in a national championship last year. Kobe Savage from Kansas State. They played in a Big 12 title game. Like, you got a lot of guys who have played big-time football. They understand what it takes. This isn't a young, inexperienced team. At a lot of positions, these are veterans who have been through this, and they understand the grind and what it takes week in and week out in order to win. So if I'm looking for things this weekend, just to circle or keep an eye on for Oregon and Maryland. The only thing that should scare you as a Duck fan is that Maryland can sling the ball around a little bit. They can throw it. They got two really good wide receivers. They run an air raid system. When you look at their point totals and kind of the way that they've thrown the ball, they're not terrible. They have, let me pull up the numbers here. Where's their that's passing defense. They have the worst passing defense in the Big Ten. Their passing offense in the Big Ten this year is number one. They're throwing the ball for 314 yards per game. Oregon is number two at 299. So just give you a glimpse of kind of where Maryland's offense is at. They can sling the rock. They got two really good, big-bodied wide receivers on the outside. That's really the only concern that you have if you're Oregon. And I actually will think, if I'm watching this game, that's a really good test for Oregon's secondary. You look at Oregon last year, one of their big weaknesses in those big matchups against Washington was the way that their secondary would play. And outside of Kyrie Jackson, RIP, you didn't really have another guy back there that you trusted at a high level, either at safety or a corner in terms of pass coverage. And at times they were exposed against the Huskies. Now, the Huskies exposed a lot of folks. They were really good outside of those games. I think Oregon's secondary has been tremendous and one of the more underrated parts of their team this year. They just haven't faced a lot of offenses. You see this a lot more in the Pac-12. This is one of the biggest differences, I think, in the conference change, where in the Pac-12, you would face a random Washington State team who couldn't really run the ball. Their defense wasn't very good, but damn it, they were going to throw it 50 times a game, and they were going to test your secondary. And you would stumble across teams like that, Arizona the last couple of years, that could sling it around on you. There's not a lot of offenses like that in the Big Ten. You're playing Purdue's, you're playing Illinois, you're playing Michigan. These are teams that want to be physical at the line of scrimmage, that want to run the ball. And so there haven't been a ton of tests for this Oregon secondary really outside of, hell, maybe just the Ohio State game. Well, this is one where they'll get tested. I think they're up for the challenge. I think Nico Reed has been one of the more underrated players on Oregon's team this year. He's come on incredibly impressively the last couple of weeks, and that corner number 2 spot outside of Jabbar Muhammad. So a really fun matchup for Oregon secondary. I can't wait to see how they handle it, and it's a good challenge for them going forward because eventually down the road, you're going to face some offenses. Washington has a really good passing attack, one of the better wide receivers in the country this year, and so going into the Big Ten title game potentially in a playoff spot, you're going to have to need a little bit more from your secondary, and I'm excited to see how they face that challenge. Outside of that, for me, it really comes down to, is there an overlook factor here? As Lanning just talked about, it hasn't been a problem for them yet, outside of the first 2 clunkers right out of the gate. Is it a slow start? Do you do things to hurt yourselves? That will allow Maryland to stick in the game. And then where do you go from the guys that got banged up last week? Now, it sounds like Marcus Harper is going to be fine. I doubt he's going to play tomorrow, but that's good news for you long term. Where do you go at guard with him being gone? Where's that next guy up? So they put in Kawika Rogers. He came in late after Harper went down on the road in Michigan. Is that your answer? Do you go Dave Iuli, who was back for the first time this past week, a junior who they were really high on in training camp, big 6'3", 340-pound body at guard, massive human being. Is that your answer? There's a handful of freshmen who have kind of started to see a little more, potential to get some playing time or maybe getting in a garbage time situation. So I'm fascinated to see where they go at guard. That is, I think most people would argue all season been their Achilles heel, where it was if the offensive line goes down or if the offensive line doesn't gel, that will be why Oregon doesn't have the season that many people are expecting. But it's solved all the answer, or solved all the problems that they had early in the season. They've been healthy. They've had that same group start, that same 5 start, essentially since the Oregon State game. They found their footing in the second half against Boise as an offensive line, got the right combination in there, Poncho at center, Strother and Harper at guard. And so it's been the same lineup now for a very long time, and now you're likely going to have to change that up. So does that throw a wrinkle in? Is there a drop-off in play? Rodgers had a couple of plays against Michigan where he really struggled, and there was a lot of push up front. You're not going to quite face the same defensive line against Maryland that you did against Michigan last week. So I don't quite expect that to be the problem, but just curious to see where they go there. And then on the outside, I mean, you had Tez Johnson go down, who was your number one guy in terms of targets and yards and basically every receiving category. Great news earlier this week that he's going to be back at some point this season. Who's the next wide receiver up? Now, it sounds like Gary Bryant should be able to or could be able to play this weekend, which would be massive for them.
Taj Holden had some big plays for you against Michigan.
Holden was great, man. He was awesome. And so I think your number one, number two is going to be Evan Stewart and Trayshawn Holden. Your number three, if Bryant is back, will likely be Gary Bryant. You can line up Kenyon Sadiq on the outside. If Gary Bryant can't go, which one of your young – is it, are you going to a Jeremiah McClellan? Is it Jurion Dickey? Is it Ryan Pelham who dropped the punt? Just seeing where that lineup kind of unfolds.
I think they'll use two tight ends more, especially if Ferguson's
absolutely.
You can put Sadiq in a slot or something like that.
You flex him in, flex him out. They got three different tight ends that they feel comfortable playing. The Herbert thing, they got to stop going to him on third down and maybe on fourth and goal. That's my only issue with it. But
you can play with Sadiq and Ferguson.
Absolutely, you can, and they do it a lot. And so I just think seeing how they navigate some of these guys going down and which next young guy steps up. Go back to the Ohio State week where it's Jordan Birch goes down. How are you going to fare defensively? And you saw Mateo and Tatum Tuioti have these awesome performances and kind of take over. You've seen some of the interior defensive line. Those young guys have come along. They're really high on this young group of wide receivers. Jeremiah McClellan especially. He would be my biggest guess if Gary Bryant isn't a huge part of the offense. My first guess would be it is Jeremiah McClellan. He's looked really good in the time that he has been put in late in games. And so just seeing how that all shakes out, I think it's going to be fascinating. Maryland is not a super stiff challenge, but college football teaches us every single week that if you overlook somebody or you play with your food or you fart around a little bit too much, you never know what the hell could happen. And that almost happened to Oregon the first 2 weeks of the season. Been a different team since then. So as long as they don't beat themselves, I don't see Maryland hanging around, primarily because when you look at Maryland's defensive numbers on the season, they are atrocious. They're the third worst defense in the Big Ten. They're the worst pass defense in the Big Ten. Rushing defense, they are, bottom half of the Big Ten in rushing defense. And so this is a team that really struggles to get stops, really struggles to keep points off the board.
I'll be curious to see if Maryland tries to run on first down or if they try to go reverse, knowing how stout the front seven is for the Ducks, knowing they've got to get yards on first down.
Yeah, you don't want to put yourself in 2nd and 9 consistently.
Exactly. So I'll be curious when Oregon figures out what they're doing on first down, and then if they win first down, then it could be a long day for the Maryland offense.
Their rushing offense this year in the Big Ten is 14th. They're averaging 119 yards per game. The only rushing offense is lower than them: Michigan State, Minnesota, Northwestern, and UCLA.
But how much are they trying to run?
And that's a great question. Yeah, they're an air raid offense. They love throwing the football.
They want to throw the ball.
Yes, they do. So Maryland in town tomorrow. I know this isn't one that's going to put the antennas up for a lot of people. You reached this time of year, man. It is wild to think you got 3 games left. It's almost over.
I know.
So you look up, you're like, oh, okay.
Well,
you got Maryland, Wisconsin, bye week,
like
Washington, and the year's over.
Just
regular
seizing
season.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
As the last game showed, with some key guys getting hurt, great. They should be back, to play at some point. But,
does it give you another piece that they play so well that you then feel confident giving other guys a rest?
But you're 3 wins from the Big Ten championship.
You are.
And you might be 2 wins away, depending on what else happens with other, schools.
Very true.
So get them now, and
right.
Don't leave things hanging. I think that's more the message, and this is where Dan Lanning preaching playing to our standard. It's really about us. We've heard that from July.
That's always been his mantra. Yeah,
it's his mantra, but that's where it shows up in these weeks.
When you're playing Maryland, and you got to bring it, because if you don't, if you talent-wise, they have no business hanging on the field with you, but that's not what games are decided on.
Some players, and they have a system that can provide big explosive plays.
Yes, they do.
And all of a sudden you fall asleep for a series and
Safety doesn't get over the top. Oh, God, we just gave up a 40-yard completion. What happened?
Why?
And then you drop a punt. It's raining,
And then it's Idaho in the fourth quarter.
Weird stuff can happen. Last thing I'll have on this, and then we'll move on to the other in-state school because they got a big one this weekend as well. Lanning was asked yesterday on primetime, something if you're looking, Duck fan, hey, what should I keep an eye on this weekend? The third quarter thing is becoming a storyline. Now, is there validity to it? Like, statistically, yes. You're still winning games comfortably and by double digits and covering numbers. So I'm not losing a lot of sleep over it, but they asked Lanning, hey, third quarter, what the hell's going on?
Now, do we need to work on your halftime speeches? I mean, what's going on with this third quarter stuff? Everybody's making a big deal out of this.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at those.
Coincidence?
We'll figure something out.
Or, actual problem?
There's truth to it, right? Like there's always some truth to the reality of that we haven't done as well as we want to do in the third quarter. So it's an opportunity for growth for us for sure.
So opportunity for growth. Do they score a touchdown in the third quarter, Jason Swagger? They have not scored a touchdown in the third quarter in Big Ten play.
I think they will get a touchdown.
You think they get one this weekend? Okay.
I think Dan Lanning's the kind of guy, and he's handling it great so far in the media. I think under his skin, I think he's tired that this won't go away.
Yes.
And the only way it goes away is by
a 14-0 third quarter on Saturday.
17-0 third quarter.
Yeah. So
I don't think he's overly worried about it. I think they look at it as some sort of coincidence. They have had massive halftime leads in most of their recent games.
They go into this shell mode of just run the ball and
wanting to consolidate the games at that point, having a big lead. Let's not get wild and crazy and put ourselves in a position to do something stupid. But at the same point, I think he's getting tired of the question.
Well, he can put an end to him this weekend. With a nice little third quarter, you'll say, we don't need to talk about that anymore. So Oregon and Maryland tomorrow. Some things to keep an eye on. We'll see. You never know. College football's funky. You get wild games sometimes. Maryland shouldn't be able to hang, but the weather's going to be a little bad.
Hey, looks like we're back up on YouTube.
Hey, we are. Look at that. Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you. Hey, look at me. Welcome. Better later than. Did Joey figure it out? How do we get that resolved?
I don't necessarily know.
We just rebooted a computer.
Well, I rebooted it. Then he was in remoting looking at 72 different settings to see if there's, the one switch in the fifth window in the background that didn't get flipped on.
Well, better late than never. We are here. It is a football Friday. Shout out to Joey, too, by the way. A lot of times engineers getting them up early for things that go wrong or haywire during our show has not been easy. Joey is the man. I love Joey. And I hope he is here forever because he's awesome. He'll always get up when we have an issue. Back on YouTube, good morning, everybody. There is your Oregon-Maryland breakdown and preview. Let's go to the other in-state school. Big one for your Beavs this weekend. A must-win if they want to go to a bowl game. What do we make of the quarterback situation? They're a little bit healthier. Talk a little bit about that matchup. That's next on 1080 The Fan.